Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us this evening. I am Kevin Margolis, and I serve as the chair of the Federation's Community Planning Committee. Special thanks to those of you who are joining us straight from the meaningful Yom HaShoah commemoration at B'nai Yeshua Synagogue. It was powerful to hear stories directly from survivors and their families, especially during this time of rising anti-Semitism. Over the past few weeks, we have witnessed a dramatic and alarming increase in anti-Semitism and anti-Israel activity on college campuses. Naturally, we are very concerned about the physical safety and mental health of our college students. To begin to answer the many questions we have and to put this situation in context, we have three expert panelists this evening. We have Adam Lehman, CEO and President of Hillel International, Sherry Merrill, Chief Operations Officer of Hillel International, and Ali Trotter, Director of Admissions and Community Outreach for Belfair Jewish Children's Bureau. Just so you know, at the end of the webinar, we will also hear from Federation's President, Erica Rudin-Luria, to share information about resources and next steps. We have a list of questions sent in through the registration form, and we will start with those, but if you have additional questions, please use the Q&A function and we will do our best to answer them either in the webinar or in a follow-up email. Thank you, Adam, to begin with you. Thank you, Adam, very much for joining us. For those of you who are not familiar with Hillel International is the largest and most inclusive Jewish campus organization in the world, serving more than 160,000 Jewish students each year at 850 colleges and universities around the world. Adam Lehman is Hillel International's fifth president and CEO. Adam's originally from Shaker Heights. He grew up attending both Park Synagogue and suburban Temple Kol Ami. Now, Adam has to jump off the call at 7:30, so we want to get started, but we really appreciate him taking the time to speak with us this evening. So, Adam, we are hearing some genuinely concerning things about the situation on college campuses, but it's difficult to get the full picture. What's the climate like for Jewish students on college campuses?
Yeah, thank you so much, Kevin. Thanks, Erica. Just really delighted to be able to be a part of the program and be in conversation with fellow native Clevelanders. I'll share some slides that actually speak to the bigger picture. I want to start, though, by calling out the really awesome colleagues that we have through the Hillel movement at Cleveland Hillel, at Hillel at Kent State, Hillel at Ohio State, University at Miami of Ohio, at Cincinnati, all Hillels that thankfully Cleveland Federation has been supporting for many years. And with that, the incredible work they're doing, none of what I'm going to be able to share in terms of interventions to address the issues would even be possible. If we can go to the next slide, I really want to start in the positive. We're going to talk about a lot of really troubling and difficult content. But the most important thing everyone should remember is this is about students. This is about the student experience. This is about the Jewish student experience on campus. And at Hillel, first and foremost, our professionals, we've got 1,200 that we're blessed to have working as part of this movement, every day are taking care of student needs, are making sure that students feel supported in the face of the challenges we'll discuss, but also in terms of their own just growth and development on their Jewish journeys and on their broader life journeys. This year, we're going to engage more than 180,000 students, which is far and away the most Jewish students and other students that Hillel has ever engaged in our 100-year history. And that's due to continuing to support great professional talent at Hillel and great partnerships like the partnership we have with the Jewish Federation in Cleveland, both supporting locally and supporting Hillel International. If we go to the next slide, this will give a bigger frame. I want to talk about first the issues that we've seen since 10/7 and then drill down in terms of the really intense and somewhat shocking issues of the past 2 weeks. Since 10/7, we at Hillel International have already recorded more than 1,480 discrete incidences of anti-Semitism on campus. And just to put it in perspective, hopefully people recognize that that is an intolerable and excessive number to begin with, but on a relative basis, that's more than 700% greater year over year than what we had seen the prior year, which had been the high point in terms of recorded incidences. And it includes, sadly, a lot of different ways that Jewish students are feeling isolated, marginalized, harassed, or attacked. We've had more than 60 instances of physical assault or harassment. This is more than the last 10 years combined, just since 10/7. And to put a finer point on that, even in just the past 2 weeks, and again, I'll get to the set of challenges we're facing with encampments, but even in the last 2 weeks, we had a student at Yale who, adjacent to an encampment, was stabbed in the eye and forced to go to the hospital, stabbed with a Palestinian flag, if that's not metaphoric enough. A student at UNC who was attacked and beaten up, a student at UCLA who was beaten unconscious and actually had to go to the hospital, a student at Virginia Tech who was physically assaulted and slapped. We've had students called dirty kikes, dirty Jews, baby killers. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. So in terms of the totality of the issues, unfortunately, they are, in many of these instances, just as concerning and significant as many people have picked up, even at the higher level from news coverage. If we go to the next slide, in terms of the last 2 weeks, this was a tremendous surprise. Having this focused encampment movement emerge at a time when the encampments are nominally talking about ceasefire, and yet there, at that point 2 weeks ago, was virtually no military activity being pursued in Gaza to begin with. Not to mention that, we had done so much work, and we'll talk about this, with administrations and others to try to make sure that these kinds of out-of-control protests were not taking hold on so many campuses. And yet here we are with more than 100 encampments having emerged over just this past 2 weeks. And we are dealing with each situation case by case as aggressively as we can. And again, I can speak more to that, but this also gives a sense for just the crisis of this current moment facing students and really facing the Jewish community. If we go to the next slide, I want to talk a little bit about the Jewish student experience itself, because as I said at the start, this is about what students are experiencing, how they feel about this situation, and how it's impacting them. And we've been doing pulse surveys throughout the period since 10/7. In that latest pulse survey, 73% indicated they had experienced or witnessed anti-Semitism on campus. 54% said they were feeling unsafe, and 44% said they were not feeling well supported by their universities. This was all before this past 2 weeks. We actually have a survey in the field right now, and I imagine that data will be even more troubling when we have that data in hand a few days from now. But overall, again, unfortunately, the way that Jewish students are experiencing these issues is not isolated or episodic. We're seeing really widespread impact and concern. I will say, as a bright spot, I mean, it's hard to talk about bright spots in this context, but students do see Hillel and other Jewish spaces as more critical than ever. And as we look to the future, we really have to continue to invest in not only safe spaces, but spaces where students can express their full identity, feel supported, have advocates working on their behalf. And that is what Hillel professionals are doing day in and day out at this point. If we go to the next slide, I just want to talk about some of the ways we're responding, Kevin, to this situation. And then we'll close out talking a little bit about, just on this piece of it, what I believe folks attending this webinar and also through the Federation can be doing in support. Number one, we have multiple teams. Thankfully, we've been well supported by foundation partners to build up the capacity so we can provide crisis support. So we actually have staff dropping into campuses all over the country to support Jewish students in particular, Hillel professionals, work directly with administrators to deal with these encampments and deal with these situations. We've been working in close partnership with others on security and talent support. We at Hillel International have opened up security and staffing grants. We've already distributed millions since October 7th in these special security and talent support grants. And with this latest wave a few weeks ago, we reopened grants to make sure Hillels and students were feeling supported. We created a petition a few days ago because one of the things our community has been lacking is a way to feel heard. And so if you use the barcode right there, you can, or QR code, go ahead and sign the petition. We're close to 20,000 signatures. We want to continue to grow the support for the petition so we can use this as we're advocating with government and with university administrations. We continue to partner on rallies and solidarity events. I will say we're working to keep students safe. So we are not, at least at Hillel, pursuing direct counter protests day in and day out, but we are on campus and adjacent to campus pursuing rallies and solidarity events so that students can not only express themselves, but have a space to fight back. We have been doing trainings for university administrators. We actually recently in Cleveland had a couple hundred university administrators assembled so that they can adopt stronger practices when it comes to addressing campus anti-Semitism. With this latest wave of issues, just this past week, we hosted a webinar with 100 university administrators to help them prepare for graduations. Thankfully, at Ohio State, just today, they were able to execute their graduation without major disruption, and we're really grateful for that. And then we're coordinating on government advocacy. Just to close out the kind of bigger picture landscape, if you go to the next slide, we're looking at partnership across the board, and that certainly relates to Cleveland Federation, as well as many of the individuals on this call. Number one, federations, for sure, as I know they are, can be consulting Campus Hills on their immediate needs, amplifying Hill communication so that everyone gets the benefit of what you guys are going to be hearing tonight. I'm considering a community rally. We've had community rallies with our federation partners in Boston and Los Angeles, partnering with us on state and local advocacy, and engaging with your local Campus Hills in summer planning so we can get ahead of these issues as we head towards the fall. We can take the slides down, but I thought it might be helpful to just give that bigger picture overview.
Great. Adam, thank you so much for that very helpful overview. A lot's going on, a lot that you're having to deal with. It's really a complicated situation. So who are the major organizations working on these issues, and can you tell us more about what their main strategies are?
Yeah, for sure. And as you would imagine, as Hillel, being the largest Jewish student organization on campus, we're working hard to identify needs and then catalyze partnership across the ecosystem. This may sound a little complicated as I go through the answer to this, Kevin, but it does reflect the reality that there is no one silver bullet to deal with the issues we're facing. So number one, we are continuing to stay focused on investing in Jewish student life on campus. Even as these encampments and associated out-of-control protests have been taking place, we have been holding not only awesome seders as we kicked off Pesach, but so many other events that are lifting up graduating seniors and just creating space for Jewish students. And our primary partners in terms of that on-campus work consists of Chabad on campus and the Greek organizations, AEPI and some of the other Jewish supporting or Jewish denominated Greek organizations. Security, sadly, has become a significant issue. As we all know, we need to do everything we can, even if we can't fully control for every security risk, do what we can to invest in stronger security so Jewish students feel safe in connection with organizations like Hillel and more broadly on campus. Our primary partners there are federations through the Live Secure Initiative, the Secure Communities Network, and government. We, without sharing state secrets, we are in weekly and often daily coordination with the Department of Homeland Security, with the FBI, and with others, just to try to make sure that at the security level, we're mitigating risk as much as we can. Legal is another important strategy. Unfortunately, I think because our educational institutions are large bureaucracies, even as you and so many have been advocating for them to pay attention to these issues, they have not moved fast enough. They have not moved aggressively enough. So really, since 10/7, we have been working with a few partners to try to bring Title VI actions. Title VI is part of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. And fortunately, as of a few years ago, clearly provide civil rights for Jewish students so that they don't have to continue to attend school in pervasively hostile and discriminatory environments. So our partners there are the Brandeis Center and ADL. Together, we have something called the Campus Anti-Semitism Legal Line, where we've already processed more than 500 student and staff complaints. And we are working closely with the Department of Education to really push them hard around filing complaints under Title VI. We need that lever and that hammer, frankly, to get schools to take the kind of aggressive action that's required here. That then bridges into government advocacy. And again, a space that Federation plays a very important role. We have been at the federal level working closely with the Department of Justice, with the Department of Education, as I said, Homeland Security, with White House representatives. Of course, Jewish Federations of North America has been a critical leader and partner with us in that work on these issues. The Conference of Presidents is another key partner, ADL, AJC, the Orthodox Union, really many others have come together. And I must say, it's something we should be proud of as a community, which is more than any time that I've been working in the Jewish communal landscape, I have seen so many organizations partnering very effectively together, and that government advocacy area is one of those spaces. I talked about needing to pressure administrations from the outside. We also want to partner with administrations from the inside, and Hillel and Jewish Federations are two of the key players in being able to broker not only those partnerships, but hopefully catalyze productive change. How do you improve anti-Semitism awareness and education? How do you improve bias reporting policies? How do you improve enforcement of policies? That's something we've seen lacking in so many cases. So we have a program, the Campus Climate Initiative. We're closing in on 100 university partners. That piece of it is slower going because we're really getting inside the engine of these universities to make policy change, but over time that will be important. Other partners in that domain include ADL, AJC, and of course, federations. Student leadership is another critical strategy. We know we are at our best when students have their voices elevated and when they can have the agency and empowerment to advocate for themselves. We just a month ago brought together 800 student leaders at our Israel Summit in Atlanta. The Israel on Campus Coalition is a key partner for us in also gathering student leaders together, and we'll continue to grow that part of the work. And then finally, we have a sickness. We know this, right? It's not specific to campus. Campus is symptomatically one of the key places that the sickness is manifesting, but it's a bigger issue in society. And so we are partnering with several organizations to try to, even though it seems like a big undertaking, take this issue on in social media and mass media. The Foundation to Combat Anti-Semitism, which is supported by the Kraft Foundation and Rails Foundation, is a key partner for those who might have seen the Super Bowl ad. I mean, there's a whole series of additional media assets coming out. And then the 10/7 Project, which again is something federations have played a key role with. So long answer, but hopefully it gives people a sense for all the different ways we're trying to drive to improvement here.
So lots of people working on this, which is great. Lots of problems to solve and address. So given these challenges and frankly, the ever-changing situation every day in the news, where everybody's seeing something new and concerning, and that's an understatement. Yeah. What do you think college students, their parents that are concerned about community members, what can they do to fight anti-Semitism? Can you share your thoughts on that?
Yeah, for sure. And again, we all have a role to play here, and we all should feel empowered in terms of our capacity to make an impact. I'm going to start with students. For students themselves, as safely as they feel they can, continuing to express themselves in their full identity in terms of Jewish identity, in terms of Israel affinity, I think is important. Now, of course, they have to assess safety risk where they see that, but students' capacity to stand up for themselves is obviously really important in this moment. Relatedly, if they do encounter a safety issue, it is critical that students and their families report the issues. I've talked to so many students on so many campuses, they're cynical. They say, why should I even bother? Because the school has never been responsive or no one seems to pay attention. But I have to say, I was sitting with, the Attorney General of the United States and the head of the Civil Rights Division last week, and a key member of the FBI, and their numbers are different than our numbers. And it's part of it is because students and families aren't always reporting issues, particularly the more acute issues. So, that's really important as well. I think you guys are going to talk about wellness. Oh, sorry, Kevin.
The
Go ahead.
question is, who should they report to?
So you can report online through reportcampushate.org, reportcampushate.org, and that we then use to report through to law enforcement. They can get assistance from a Campus Hill professional, not only with the Report Campus Hate, but if there's a bias reporting process specific to the university as well. And of course, they can report directly to law enforcement, but reportcampushate.org is probably the simplest avenue for that kind of reporting. For students, taking care of themselves, investing in their own wellness is critically important. I have talked to a lot of students who I think are carrying too much of the burden and trying to solve this problem themselves. And that's also an issue. So if a student or that student's parents see the stress, being really held by a student because they're trying to do too much, that's a time to back off, actually. And again, that's where Hill professionals can be partners in terms of not only helping a student to process issues, but also providing resource on campus, wellness resource or mental health resources as well. For parents, I think making your voices heard is really critical. Now, I want to differentiate here. I would say, and this may seem like inside baseball or just a little too biased in terms of where I'm coming from, but do not turn your ire on Jewish community professionals. It can be an easy thing to do if you're feeling frustrated, to feel like your federation partner or your campus partner is not doing enough. That can be really hard because often our campus professionals are spending a lot of time trying to manage the anxieties of parents or community members. However, being able to register a concern with the university directly is important. And again, universities, the university leaders I talk to, when those letters and emails pile up, they do pay attention and they do notice. Vote with your feet. There are probably some people on this Zoom even who are looking at schools or they have juniors in high school and they're going to think about it. We have to be self-interested, and through our Hill College Guide and other resources, we are providing a lot of information about Jewish life on campus. And increasingly, we've added data on things like where the encampments are, where there have been BDS votes, where there are Title VI actions and complaints pending, so that parents and students can be smart consumers. We want to have our students go to schools where they're going to have a great overall experience, but as part of that, where they can express themselves Jewishly, and of course, support organizations that you see as being effective. I think that starts with continuing to support your federation because they're on the inside and they know who's doing impactful work. And if you have other relationships with Hill or other organizations that you respect what you're seeing, honestly, we are not resourced for this moment. We really aren't. We were resourced to provide and support positive Jewish life experiences, but to take on what is, if we're clear-eyed, really a global, I don't want to say conspiracy, but a global effort that branches all the way back to Qatar and Iran and Hamas and God knows where China and Russia. I start to sound conspiratorial, but the practical reality is when 10 million new accounts pop up on TikTok spewing anti-Semitism, or when suddenly 100 encampments appear with coordinated demands, coordinated resources, that's not bubbling up ad hoc. So we've got a lot we've got a resource to actually take on.
Great, great. And one follow-up. You mentioned about the data you're collecting or providing about current campus situations. I presume as we move the academic calendar from graduations to not the summer break, but then back into the fall and application season, I presume your data is going to be even more robust for those juniors who will be applying.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, like I said, we're literally now, I mean, 2 weeks ago, who would have thought about an encampment as an indicator of an issue? But we're now going to be noting where encampments existed and how quickly they were addressed. So we will continue to populate data. I will say, and this is different than, for example, the approach the ADL took. We don't want to be in the business of saying that, it's like, kosher trade. We don't want to say this school is no good because the issues are virtually everywhere at this point. And that means we're not going to give a school an F or a school an A, but we are going to provide meaningful, holistic data so that students and families can get a sense for what they're walking into. And in that regard, too, I mean, this is where the fact that we have professionals on campus is an enormous asset, not only for current students, but for prospective students and families, because you can talk to the Hill professional to say, how bad was it this year? And it is different. I mean, there are schools like UC Davis or Columbia where every student I'll talk to from those universities is feeling the pain. And there are other schools, where you talk to a lot of students and they feel like they're fine. They're going about their everyday life. Maybe they see some issues, but it's not impacting them as much. So I'd encourage everyone to go ahead and take that extra step of contacting a Hill professional to get the full picture.
Great, great. I know you've got to move on from us. You've got other commitments, but I want to thank you so very much for your time. We're very lucky to have an organization as strong as Hillel International to lead us during this time. But before I let you go, I guess there's a small commercial that I just learned about, which is apparently you're going to be speaking in person at the Cleveland Hillel annual meeting on Thursday, June 27th. So I just wanted to note that for all those listening. And with that, thank you again, and we'll let you get to your next commitment and continue our questions for Sherry and Al.
Wonderful. Well, Kevin, I want to thank you so much for engaging me in the conversation, Erica and the whole team at the Jewish Federation of Cleveland for the incredible work you all continue to do. I couldn't be more proud as a Clevelander of the fact that this federation, outperforms, I'm going to say, any other. Don't tell all our friends in New York and elsewhere, but it really is still a jewel within the Federation movement and within the Jewish world. And I actually want to end with a Cleveland point too, which is not to be hokey, but we saw a Cavaliers team today that got themselves in a hole and showed grit and fought back. And I think we're in a hole right now, when it comes to these campus issues and situations. But trust me, we have grit at Hillel. Fortunately, I know you guys do at Federation. When we all work together, we're going to get this situation under control. The fall is going to be safer, more supportive. And at Hillel, we're going to, with that, continue to outperform when it comes to inspiring students in terms of their engagement with Jewish life, in terms of the positive experience they have through Jewish life and with Israel. So there's a brighter future ahead, even as we're dealing with challenges today. Thank you, guys. And
Thank you. Thank you.
I'll see you soon.
Sherry, I think I see you up there in the corner. Our next questions are for you, since you oversee Hillel International's talent and programmatic team that works directly with campuses. So we've heard about different strategies being used. Can you share with us some examples of where they've made a difference and improved the campus climate for Jewish students?
Yeah, I can absolutely do that. And I think I want to start by mentioning that all of the data that Adam mentions flows through our shop. And so when we are trying to think through the investments to make programmatically or strategically to impact the campus climate, we're looking at all of that data and all of that insight and trying to make data-informed decisions to try to have the biggest impact that we can have for our students. And so that includes looking at things like, which classes are getting canceled, which faculty are getting reported, how are we actually understanding the impact of other groups on campus and the role that they're playing in either exacerbating the situation or to help mitigate it. And so all of that flows through the channels that Adam mentioned, but also then shapes and informs some of the national investments that we make. And so I think the one I would note to start is the massive teach-in that we've been facilitating over the past few months, which has, I think, already hit over 100 campuses, or just about 100 campuses, with about 20,000 different students so far. And these teach-ins bring speakers like Sarah Hurwitz or Amanda Berman or Dennis Ross, David Makovsky, and they create spaces that actually serve multiple purposes. On the one hand, they're deeply educational, and they create opportunities for inquiry and learning and questions and understanding. And more so over the past few weeks, when the encampments have started to surface, we're also realizing that they are becoming safe spaces and processing spaces and space to be in community, where students can feel a sense of belonging and understanding that they need now more than ever. I think Adam shared the statistic that nearly 75% of our students are seeking out Hillel or Jewish spaces in different ways. And these teach-ins are creating that macro national strategy to help create those spaces with some intentionality, and also to help mitigate some of the risks that we are seeing from other folks who maybe aren't Jewish students on campus needing to create space and have space to learn, ask questions, and understand. That was the #1 request coming from our Hillel professionals, and also was parallel with our students. So having these teach-in spaces is not only data informed, it's really meeting a need in this moment. The other thing that I would want to specifically, speak to is what we anticipate happening with commencements or graduations. I know that for the most part, this weekend was probably a 5 out of 10 for what we anticipated across our entire movement. But we also know that only about 10% of graduations and commencements were happening this weekend, and they're over the next 4, 5, 6 weeks. And so in places like USC, where they canceled graduation, we are working hand in hand alongside Hillel and Chabad to create a special graduation experience, specifically, in that context of bringing people together and still celebrating this milestone for them. And we anticipate seeing how that is going to evolve, as I said, over the next few weeks. But that's just another example of wanting to create those spaces in really intentional, meaningful ways that can impact the climate. I'd be remiss, I think, not to mention, and I know this from my Federation days, I was the Chief Impact Officer at the Jewish Federation in Greater Washington, that one of the things we worked really closely with our campuses on was around Shabbat experiences and, cultural and spiritual experiences. And we are seeing the Shabbats that are happening. They're called senior Shabbats. I was at the ASU one a few weeks ago. This Shabbat, this past Shabbat, Kent State Hillel actually had their largest ever senior Shabbat with over 100 people. And so that's the other place where we're really trying to lean in programmatically, strategically. If we can help invite people into spaces that maybe they wouldn't have been in before, that's actually changing the campus climate. It's saying that these spaces are more important now than ever. It's saying to students that there is a safe place for you to go on campus and to be true to your identity. And it's also telling administration campus and Jewish life isn't going away. It's actually going to be here. It's going to be present, and we're going to celebrate it. And I think, I'm appreciative of the time. I don't want to turn up too much space, but I want to just note that this, alongside with the rallies like with CJP in Boston, GW just did one locally, some of the grassroots student organizations that are doing this kind of bottom up, all of this alongside things like the teach-in or bringing Alex Edelman to, campus like we did in Michigan. Those are all things that can bring some of the joy to the campus climate, while Hillel International and in the spirit of those partnerships that Adam mentioned are still working on the media strategy, the legal strategy, the national advocacy strategy. But this has to sit side by side, and a lot of this is really driven by and focused on the students.
Got it. So, you talked about graduation, where we are right now, and we know that, school's either out or going to be out very soon on many of the campuses. What are you hearing about where this is going to go during the summer, and as Hillel, and what are you hearing from the universities in terms of preparations for the fall, which frankly sneaks up on us as early August, depending on the school's calendars?
Sure. I'll talk about this as a before, during, and after, because I think that's a little bit about what it feels like. So we're still in the before for, 90% of our commencements and graduation that are coming down the pike. And we, as Adam mentioned, are hosting best practices for campus administrators. We have over 100 who have gone through and are participating in this training to try to get them ready. They're looking at it from, I mean, what's a best practice when you're designing it, while you're doing it? But there are some really core components of this. Have we talked about security? Are we looking equitably across different groups? Are we thinking strategically about Title VI? There are things that we can put in place to make sure that we're prepared for what can happen at a commencement or a graduation. That, alongside with helping the administrations in the different campuses or colleges and universities understand the dynamic. And how they tackle their encampment has a real indicator of what we anticipate will manifest on campus. Some prevented it from going up in the first place. Others have seen it surface and taken it down and prevented it from resurfacing. Others are taking them down, seeing them resurface somewhere else, and kind of playing a little bit of that whack-a-mole. And others are in negotiation. And that's not going so well, right? The negotiation or the whack-a-mole strategy is not working. And so those administrations needing to be in conversation with us around, okay, this is a real risk. How are we going to help you prepare for your university commencement or graduation? Takes a different tone and a different approach than the administrations that are tackling the campus climate in a different way. And the Campus Climate Initiative is playing a really intentional and direct role in creating those resources, doing that training, and being in conversation and collaboration with the university administrators. That's the before. The during is working with the Secure Community Network, with SCN. It's working with our partners on campus. It's working with our campus support directors. It's working with our triage system. We often know what's happening on campus in real time because of a series of, our Israel Leadership Network and the 800 students that we had at our Israel Summit in Atlanta. We have our ear to the ground and we have conversations and connections with students and campus organizations. So it's how do we help mitigate some of the risk of something escalating, right? Or how do we help highlight when there's something that we see emerging and we want to expose the risk and help the university get in front of it before it becomes something that they can't manage. And a lot of this unfolds in real time. Things escalate. There's not always only students in the mix or in the conversation. And there's a whole set of variables that we're still experiencing and uncovering and realizing in real time. And then there's the after. So the after I'll talk about in two ways. On the one hand, Hill International is going on a series of campus tours, listening tours, in the spirit of, what should next year look like? How do we make this different? What does that mean and what does that look like? We'll continue to create leadership programs to give students the education, the insight, the confidence, and the leadership skills that they need to show up on campus in really meaningful and important ways. And how do we need to do that differently depending on how the campus climate evolves over the summer? And at the same time, the universities will need to show up a little bit differently too. They are learning right alongside with us around what it means to have Jewish spaces on campus, what it means to have to respond to or react to anti-Israel resolutions. And so a lot of this will go hand in hand in taking the summer to help them reflect and then react and prepare in a really different way so that they can create that environment that's conducive to learning and to having a college experience, hopefully without the same degree of anti-Semitism in the campus climate.
Right. Great information. Thank you so very much. So our next, or it's our last question, but then we'll have Erica afterwards, is for Ali. Ali is the Director of Admissions and Community Outreach for Belfair Jewish Children's Bureau, and which is, of course, a partner agency to the Federation. Thanks, Ali, for being with us. Ali, we've heard about all these really challenging situations, and so many of us and our college students are constantly facing these things either in real life or through social media. What tips do you have? What strategies do you have for us for how to manage, or how we can share with our children or our friends to manage the stress and to navigate these challenges?
Thank you, Kevin. I'm honored to be here and to talk about this very difficult topic. I think first and foremost, we need to acknowledge to the students how difficult this situation is. And we need to ensure that the students and children, kids, they're really not children anymore, have access to the facts and to information that is not based on social media, which may or may not be factual. The social media is a big concern. So I know we can encourage our kids all day long to take a break from social media. It may or may not happen, but they need credible information. They really do. And the other thing that I think we need to take into consideration is the notion of groupthink. I think it's easy, as we see with some of these encampments and protests on campus, that it's sort of a group think. I'm not entirely confident that all of the people involved have the facts. And each of these students are individuals. So from the perspective of mental health, I think we have to be really considerate about each person as an individual. Some students may want to get out there and protest and be the face of the Jewish faith, and to sort of be the opposition of antisemitism. Others may want to do this quieter and to sit behind their computer and perhaps write a letter to the university or speak to a professor that they that they have a relationship with. So I just really think it's so important for us to treat each of these students as individuals. Most importantly, every one of these college students needs a trusting adult, as we know, and has been proven time and time again that trusting adult, somebody that you can rely on, builds resiliency. I have encouraged students that I've been working with to find people on campus that they trust. It could be someone at Hillel, it could be a professor, it could be a friend, but they really need to rely on people that they can trust and talk to. Self-care, so important. It goes without saying that, you know, they should, if they can, take a break from social media. They need to check in with themselves. They need to check in with their parents and trusting people, and also know that there are professionals out there that are available. All of the mental health organizations in Cleveland, I know, are working very closely with the students who are experiencing anti-Semitism or have had bad experiences, and we will encourage parents and students to reach out. We are here, and we are beyond ready to help, and hope that people will reach out as needed.
Great, great. Thank you, Allie. It's important to keep all those things in mind. And with you here, I want to remind everyone on this webinar that if you're struggling or having trouble coping, you can contact Access Jewish Cleveland, which is the Jewish Federation's confidential helpline. And that number is 216-292-INFO or 4636. Again, 216-292-4636 or accessjewishcleveland.org. It's all one word.org for appropriate referrals. If you have urgent concerns, JFSA and Belfair both have 24-hour intake lines, and we put the phone numbers in the chat, and we'll send them out after this webinar. So if you look in the chat now, that should be up there. So with that, I want to turn, in our last few minutes, I'd like to ask our final question to Erica Rudin-Luria, our Federation president, to close us out. Erica, we know the Federation's been working behind the scenes and creating helpful resources, but can you share what's been going on and where people can find those resources? Thanks.
Sure. Thank you, Kevin. And thank you everyone for joining us tonight. So let me first say, we've been getting emails and texts and phone calls and hearing consistently from parents and students, frankly, whose kids go to a whole host of different schools. And so depending on what university you're connected to or your kids goes to, the right strategy might be very, very different. And so I just want to say that, and your kids' experience could be very, very different. So a few different things that we're doing and some resources. We're actively advocating for the mental health and physical safety of our Jewish students. We're doing this with our universities who are partners of ours, of which we have a number here in Cleveland and in Northeast Ohio, and actually beyond in Ohio. We're also, we've also been on the phone with trustees and others from universities not in Ohio, as people have connected us to different groups. We're finding that, as was said earlier, that those universities that are holding people accountable, all students and faculty and visitors accountable to the same rules, are those universities where students seem to be faring better or seem to feel more supported. But I would say that you should keep talking, keep calling the university president, keep speaking to the trustees, stay in dialogue with your student, with the folks at the university. The students have a sense of what is going on, but they're not always communicating with the university administration. So you can go on to jewishcleveland.org. You can see on it, on the Cleveland Stands with Israel site, there's a whole host of different materials available on the website. Frankly, if you're looking for something specific, you can really just call Access Jewish Cleveland, and the person at Access will get you to the right person. Actually, if you call any of us at Federation, we will get you to the right person to answer your question, whether it's what is information on why is it boycott, divestment, and sanctions is anti-Semitic? Why is it, actually, this slide says it far better than I am. It's listing all of the different resources and credible facts that are available. Hillel's another great resource. Frankly, we won't hesitate to connect you to the Campus Anti-Semitism Coalition. I'd recommend, we all want to do more to demonstrate that we're caring for our college students. Don't hesitate to reach out to someone. Sign the petition to stand up for Jewish students. We've also, just so that you know, been coordinating and in conversation with local campus security. Our JFC security has had many conversations. We've had many conversations, frankly, very supportive ones, with the mayor, with others around security in Cleveland, around UCI, around the campus, with the administration of Case Western. Everyone wants for the campus environment to be safe for all students. We're working closely with them to make sure that it's understood that if students are blocked from getting into a library at any university, if rules are not being followed in a way that restricts student movement at any university, that it's just not okay. So I'd recommend people stay in conversation. Frankly, we're also providing food and other supplies for Jewish students so that they can prepare for finals and complete their studies at Hillel or in other safe spaces on campus. Our students are finishing up the year, and we will be looking to provide them with more resources over the summer, whether they be welfare, Jewish family service type of resources, or other resources to prepare them. I'll answer fast. One of the questions that we got was, Students for Justice with Palestine has been demanding that schools revoke their ties with Hillel and other Jewish organizations. I've not seen a school that's done this yet. But again, the schools that go into negotiations are schools, frankly, that seem to be faring worse on this. SJP right now is being SJP stands for Students for Justice with Palestine. They are being sued as the student arm of the Hamas organization, which is everyone on this call knows, is a genocidal terrorist organization that is out to eliminate the state of Israel. I think we should call it what it is. And I think we should call it what it is when we're speaking to universities as well. I don't believe that there is data on a list that Hillel has as to who the professors are who are anti-Semitic. If you talk to the students on different campuses are looking at who is signing on to these letters and lists. They are looking at them. The students can tell you, and we've been hearing and seeing that as well. But what I want to leave you with is that we're here in this together, and we are working together on every aspect of this. So I want to thank you so much. And I want to thank Kevin. And Kevin, I don't know if you have closing remarks. I know I have a few announcements. Did you have anything else you wanted to say before
just to thank you and Adam and Sherry and Allie. I mean, this is so important, and I'm sure we'll all be back together sometime before the school year starts again, if not sooner.
I have no doubt that that is true. So I just want to remind everyone, if you don't find the answers that you're looking for on those pages, and I know that we did not get to every question, please reach out to us at Federation, reach out to Access Jewish Cleveland. We are here to help and to assist. And where we don't know the answers, we're here to figure out those answers together. 2 opportunities upcoming to come together as a community and celebrate. First, actually, this is not a celebration. Yom HaZikaron, Israel's Memorial Day, is Sunday, May 12th at 6:30 p.m. at Green Road Synagogue, and Yom Ha'atzmaut to celebrate Israel's Independence Day. It will be a little more somber this year than is usual. On Tuesday, May 14th at B'nai Yeshurun Congregation at 5:30. And I want to remind you again that Adam Lehman will be speaking at the Cleveland Hillel annual meeting on Thursday, June 27th, sometime in the evening. So please join us for all of these. Thank you again for taking the time to join us in this discussion. Thank you again to all of our panelists, Adam, Sherry, Allie, and our wonderful moderator, Kevin Margolis. Have a good evening.